Hi friends! Alright, now, as you can see, we are literally 6 days away. 6 days away before Season 0 ends. And so, as you guys really enjoy the RTA series, because after all, this game is a PvP game, I thought I'd share, some tips that can help you climb a lot easier. Now, these are not strategies about like how to beat certain stuff. This is more QoL for your entire account when you're playing the game. Okay? And so I want to go through a couple of tips here. And hopefully these tips can actually help you climb, because as much as it is the drafting, it's also how organized you are. Okay? And so without further ado, let's jump to our little whiteboard here, shall we? And so what I want to talk about are some little tips and tricks. Okay, so let's write it up here. Tips and tricks that you have to know when you're playing RTA. Now, first things first is, when you're playing RTA, the most important thing to think about, right, is you have 30 seconds to decide on your picks. Okay, now why is this important? It's because a lot of the time, you're going to be spending looking for your units, checking out what your opponent is playing, deciphering what your opponent is trying to do, and if you can't do that all within 30 seconds, chances are the AI is going to choose for you, and then you have whiffed your entire draft. Okay? And this is something a lot of new players are going to feel pressured on, and that's why, they say, oh, RTA is so difficult, when in fact, it's not really that difficult if you actually use the tips that I'm going to be providing you. So this is the first tip. You have to understand that you have 30 seconds to decide, which means you have to be quick on your feet. Okay? So, how do you do that? Alright, I'm gonna talk about this one simple trick that I used a lot in Epic 7, and I'm also gonna be using it now. Now, I've already made my account stock standard again, but I'm gonna go through what you should be doing. Okay? So, first things first, I want you to only have 10 to 15 units built. You can have a little bit less, maybe like 8 at the best, minimum 8 units. But any less than that, you will struggle, and I don't think that you will only have less than 8 units built right now, because if you are playing RTA and you take this game relatively seriously anyway, you should have at least 10 units built. 10. Okay? And so if you have 10 to 15 units built, this is what I want you guys to do. Okay? Go through your entire account. Now, I can't give you what units are the best units for your draft or whatever, but I can tell you what you can do, because everyone's account is different. Everyone played this game differently. Somewhere or another, there's going to be a variance, and I cannot control that variance. That is up to you. But if you have listened to what I have taught you guys throughout my entire channel's history, you should be good. Okay? You should be able to follow this quite religiously. Okay? And so the first thing I want you to think about is have 10 to 15 units built. And how do you do that? I want you to separate them into, 3 categories here. Alright? You have your DPS, you have your supports, and you have your CC. Okay? Now, in your DPS slot, that can be real DPS, like you say Messiah, right? That's like a real DPS, right? Messiah, that can be like a Yelly, that kind of stuff. Or it can be like tanks. For example, you have Holden, you have Tiamat. Maybe you can have a, let's say a Hoyan, or you can even have a Rahu, right? Doesn't matter. Bulk me anything. Have 5 DPS ready. Okay? and make sure it's spread out between some tanks and some bruisers is probably the better word for it, and some real DPSs. Okay, and why is that? It's because when you start doing this, you can actually see how your account is built and how you have built your account. And therefore, if you understand how your account is built, then you can just focus on playing that playstyle and just draft that way. A lot of the times when people don't know what their entire account is, they're going to try to draft in betweens. Okay, like they're going to play aggro halfway and then they try to pivot the other way, and then you just fuck your entire draft, right? Because you are wishy-washy. Let's not have that. Okay, so write down your 5 DPS. All right, it can be a little bit more, but make sure you stick between the 5 to 15 units. Okay, and so your supports, you can also write down here how many supports you have. Let's say you have Ling, right? For example, you have Sanya, you have, let's say you have Full Q. That could work. Let's say you have Valerian too. Okay, you see, I'm writing down supports here. Okay, and these are basically your healers. You can also swap that about. Okay, and your supports can also go in the form of like a Lily. For example, you can have, like a Doki. You can have like a Suki, that kind of stuff. All right, so anything that supports your draft, all right, that supports the DPS, you can also just write that down there. Depends on how many you have, write them all down. Okay, with your CC units, same thing. If you see that you have a lot of CC units, for example, let's say you have let's say a Kraken, right? You have Obo, you have Kazuyo, you have fucking Mio, you have Nahor, let's say. Write them all down, okay? And then you can see how your account is built, all right? Now for me, I only have Kazuyo, I have Obo. My Cracker is not built, my Mio is just pulled, my Nahor is not built. So you can see that I am now more towards the DPS and support side, right? I don't play a lot of CC, okay? And so my draft can't be very CC heavy, right? Because I don't have enough CC units. So that way, you can think about your draft this way, all right? When you have your units in this category like this, all right? Write them down. Write them down on a piece of paper. Be old school, right? Fuck it, who's gonna give a fuck, all right? You can see how you can mish and mash your draft, all right? How a DPS can synergize with support and how that DPS can be, synergized with the CC unit, and you can eventually see how you can meld a team together. Okay, like for example, you can see like a Tia works very well with a Ling and a Sanya, right? Even Full Q, right? Hoyan works very well, right? With a Valerian, a Doki, with cooldowns. You can see, right? I'm giving you like little ideas here, okay? Messiah works pretty well with a Lily, a Doki, right? Same thing goes with a Yelly, and then you can just mix and match, and then you can see that, oh, okay, so Lily pairs pretty well with Kazuyo. That's nice. Okay, oh, that's right. Lily also pairs pretty well with Obo. Cool. Oh wait, what about this one, right? What about Sanya pairing with, let's say a Kazuyo? That could work, right? And so, why is that the case? It's because, let's say you pick a Kazuyo, and you have a Sanya there, now your opponent doesn't have a healer, doesn't have a purifier. That is also a combination. Why not put it in there, right? And then you can see how you can meld your team together. And so once you have done all of this, then we go into the third tip, all right? This is tip number 3, and this is arguably the most important one, which will be in the game. I'm gonna write them pretty fucking big here. Favorite those units. Why is that? It's because, I don't know if you've noticed this or if you've played enough RTA, every time you pick a unit, your entire selection pool gets jumped to the front again. Okay? And then you just scrolling left and right, trying to find a unit eats a lot of your seconds on the clock. Let's not have that. Let's try to streamline this shit, and this is arguably the most important bit here. Okay, so without further ado, now that I've written it all out for you guys, let's jump back into the game, shall we? Now that we're back in the game here, here's what I want you guys to do. Go into your animus, those 15 units that you've seen, alright? For example, let's say I'm going to definitely play Doki. What I want you to do is I want you to favorite this. See this? Click that, alright? This means it's been favorite, okay? And when it's favorite, it's going to be pushed to the front of your actual selection screen, okay? For example, you can see that I have unchecked all of my stuff. So this is the first one that I'm doing. Let's say, let's go all the way down here. Let's say I like Sania. I'm going to play Sania, right? Look what happens when I favorite. Now she's at the top of the choice board, okay? And so once you know that you only have 15 units to play with, and there's only 15 units here that you have favorited, okay? Let's say I'll go down here, let's favorite Viper. Oh, look at that. Now my Doki, my Viper, my Sania is at the top. Okay, and this will be translated as well into RTA. Okay, where your selection pool is going to be literally right in front of you. And you can only have these 15 units to play. Alright? That way, your choices are streamlined. You know how to counter your opponent. You know what choices you actually have to counter your opponent or to counter draft your opponent. And you save a lot of time on the clock. So if your units get stolen, you know that your units have been stolen because there's only 15 units that you can play there. Let's say they took 3 out of your 15, you still have 13 units to play with. Cool? And it is that simple, alright? I'm going to give this one out. I'm slowly going to drip out little RTA Masterclasses here, alright? Because I do them a lot with my chat. And if you guys haven't checked me out on Abstract, make sure you check me out on Abstract. If you have questions, ask there. If not, join my Discord, hang out with us, ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. But that is the video, okay? Hopefully this tip can help you feel more comfortable with your account and how you draft, and therefore you can play RTA a lot more comfortably, alright? But that's the video, guys. Hopefully you find value in this, and if you did, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.